Matt, welcome back to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you, mate?
Very good. It's good to be back, Ryan. Although I see you every week, so it doesn't feel like I've been like we haven't spoken to each other.
Yeah,
But
for
this
for
sure.
for context, Matt and I's sons, we play in the same they play in the same rugby team. We are coaches as well, so it is good. I was just looking back, episode 49 is when you joined me last. And
Wow.
like, where has that got time gone? It's like over 2.5 years ago.
Wow. So that's and what's this episode 150 odd, something like that, is
So
it?
this will be five, probably episode 157.
Wow. Wow. So yeah, about wow. So one a week. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying these conversations. Glad to have you back. But for those of my audience that maybe weren't with me a couple of years back, I just love for you just to get a brief introduction, bring them up to speed. Who are you?
So my name's Matt Hill. I live in Wiltshire. I run a a thing called the Systema Academy. For those of you that most of you that probably don't know what Systema is a it's a Russian martial art, but very much it's a health and well-being system as well. And in this style, it comes from a place of health and clarity and well-being. So to be able to defend yourself in this style, you need to be healthy in your body, healthy in your mind, healthy in your emotions, and so that's the base. And so lots of people come just for that reason. They don't come to be fighters or martial artists as such, although some develop that interest because it's fun. But they come to understand how to, under pressure, manage yourself, manage your emotions, and get yourself to an optimal state of
Mm.
relaxation under duress.
Mm. And pre-career, pre-Systema.
So before that, I was in business, a number of different businesses. Won't go into them all, but they included self-employment, which I am, of course, now again. Crisis management. So sat on the board of a very large company, and did crisis management across the world for all sorts of things, such as like business interruptions, such as supply chain problems, country lockdowns, police investigations, kidnaps, manslaughters, all kinds of things. And then before that, I was a captain in the Parachute Regiment in the British Army, so served there for 6 years. And before that, I lived in Japan for 2.5 years, living in a very traditional martial arts dojo, which was like a farm, no TV, no radio, no heating, kind of very Spartan. You
Mm.
worked on the farm during the day and trained in the mornings and the evenings. And I've kind of always had an interest in martial arts, and so yeah, that after leaving school, pretty much that's kind of where I went at
Mm.
19.
You've definitely cultivated a character of wisdom, and I think spending time with you on a rugby pitch on a Sunday has been really nice, and you kind of took me under your wing a little bit when I was just starting to leave the police, and we spent some time together, and man, the last 2 years have been a little bit kind of unforeseen, a little bit crazy. And
Mm.
how have I know that you've been able to pivot in great ways, and you took your services online, but how have you found Systema to be a great thing to equip people to journey these kind of uncertain times?
It's a good question, and uh, in some ways, it's led me down the path to bringing something new out. But I think there's a couple of things that Sistema does. One, it's kind of like lots of martial arts. It's rooted in some quite old traditions, some old European, Russian traditions, and health traditions. So things like cold water dousing, fasting,
Mhm.
um, uh, having some consistency about your day, and about some practices, being able to hold a consistency through turbulence, getting outside, getting out in nature. The key one really, understanding how to breathe properly. Sounds like the
Mm.
oddest thing to say, but
Yeah.
I think it's getting more and more traction now. people don't look at you like you've got two heads when you say that they don't know how to breathe properly, and
Mhm.
you give them some ideas on how to improve that capability. So those old practices, they all obviously lead to improvements in your immune system, and your sense of well-being, vitality, energy. And during these times when we've been doing things which have robbed us of energy,
Mm.
and well-being and immunity, things like closing ourselves off from other people, um, being more sedentary, spending more time in front of screens, less time in nature. Not everyone, of course,
Yep.
but I think so that for sure, some of the practices and some of the kind of old traditions, um, and then also the system, the key of Systema training itself, to feel when something's changing, i.e.,
Mm.
your system's becoming pressurized. There's tension, stress, anxiety, emotion coming into your system, and the most important thing is knowing that you're not a victim to that. You're
Mm.
not a watcher of it. You can do something about it. So knowing the tools you can use to be proactive, and that changes that dynamic almost, completely. It's a positive challenge rather than something you're victim to.
Yeah. I remember I've had a little bit of a flashback as you're speaking. I remember at the very early days of the first UK lockdown, you're out in your garden with your bucket of water.
Huh.
It was almost bringing back the ice bucket challenge of 10 years ago. It's great. And cold water therapy and breath work have been something that I've really doubled down on this
Hmm.
year. I wouldn't describe myself as a terribly anxious person, but when the third lockdown came and Boris was like, yep, your kids are going to have to stay home. I was
Hmm.
just like, the kids need to go back to school. We've just had them home for the whole of Christmas. They started to kill each other. I love them dearly, but they needed to go back to school.
Yeah.
And off comes Boris again with a lockdown 3 special. And yeah, I got quite anxious. And
Hmm.
that's where I really started to double down with the breath work and the cold water exposure. Talk to us a little bit about breath work. Talk to us about why so many people don't understand how to breathe properly.
Well, in some ways, because I think it's one of those automatic things that happens anyway.
Yeah.
It's the system of the systems that run your body. Your cardiovascular, your pulmonary, your digestive, your reproductive, your immune system. All that nervous system, all those systems that kind of run in the background.
Mm.
It's the one that will run automatically, like when you're asleep, or you can consciously interdict and have some control over. So it's the key to unlocking everything out. All those and all the systems are linked. Obviously, your whole body there's no separate bits in it. It's all linked. So it's the one that you can override and course correct a little bit, and thereby course correct all the others. So, and I think it's easy to take for granted until it's taken away. And
Mm.
you speak to anyone that got hospitalized with COVID and had breathing problems.
Mm.
It's arguably the most terrifying thing to lose.
Mm.
You can lose a limb, lose control of things, but you lose control of your breath or the ability to breathe. Death is moments away.
Mm.
So it's terrifying. But that and fear and breath are two sides of the same coin. All you got to do is hold your breath for a little bit, and fear and panic and anxiety will flood your body.
Mhm.
So you understand, when you understand how to breathe a little bit better, you understand how to manage
Mhm.
those fear responses, and it's you know probably one of, if not the most powerful um, responses in the body. Fear, because it's the survival one.
Mhm.
It's what gets you away from the lion, or or enables you to hide from someone who's coming to get you, or something. So it's a powerful response. And I think that, to answer the first part of your question, why is it a new thing to people? It's so easy to take for granted,
Mm.
and yet equally powerful when you get to understand a little bit about how to how to use it, and mostly in everyday moments.
Hmm.
Like, you know, people can do lots of tricks with breath work, you know, bring their heart rate down and, you know, visibly bring their heart rate down, and, you know, go long periods of time in cold water and things. And in some ways they're kind of tricks to catch the attention, and they've got some benefit because, you know, but the real benefit for me is the ability to know and moderate yourself moment to moment through life, so that,
Mm.
or through your day, so that, you know, you can go through your day and accumulate relaxation rather than stress, so that by the time you get home to your family, you're not this ball of angst waiting to pop and explode. That, you know, you're calm and relaxed. You know, in some ways, that, you know, understanding breath and how to manage it moment to moment in very small subtle ways is, it's the way to transform stress into relaxation.
Yeah, that's powerful. I read a book this year called Breath by James Nestor, and he talks about the power of nose breathing. So I've been like taping my mouth at bedtime so I can
Mm,
encourage myself to breathe through the nose. But the one thing I guess I always used to intuitively know back when I was at the police as a leader doing many presentations is that slowing my breathing down would calm me down. You know, in those pressurized
yeah.
situations, in that kind of the chest is pumping a little bit, I always knew that by taking a few slow, deep breaths, that I could bring a sense of presence. And I look at some rugby kickers, and you know, rather than rushing with the pace of the referee, they're taking their time, and more footballers now as well. They seem
Yeah.
to be composing themselves through breaths. But I really like what you
Yeah.
said there about the relevance of leadership, about us as leaders, and then we come home for the people who need us.
Mm.
And how, you know, there are times when Corey would have had a less present dad when I got home because I was still trying to process the day, um, you know, by thinking, and
Yeah.
I hadn't quite finished my task list. How can I wonder whether this comes into your new offering, but how does one then as a leader start to use breath work as a form of stress control?
So I know you talk a lot about heart set and, you know,
Mhm,
rather than mindset, heart
mhm,
set, and
mhm,
I like that flip. If it's even a flip, you know, maybe it's the real thing.
mhm,
And, you know, the in Systema, there's a saying that, you know, what's in your heart will come out through your fist.
mhm,
You know, and people think for a martial art it's got to be aggressive and violent and those things, and Systema is very much not. You know, it comes from a place of calm and, you know, peaceful. You know, it's in its deep roots. It's a Christian martial art. Although you don't have to be a Christian to practice it, you know, and
mhm,
lots of people that do aren't, you know, but they're the things that inform it. That, and all martial arts are really meant to be the same. You know, they're meant to be like an army. It's not
mhm.
meant to be there for violent ends. You know, it's there to bring peace. In its ideally. Um, so, and I think when you when you understand how to use your breath to manage your emotion, you understand how to bring yourself to a place of calm and ease. And generally, when there's calm and ease, there's peace.
Mm,
And so, and that comes out of you. It comes out of how you stand, how you look, how you walk, how you talk. And one of my favorite descriptions of leadership is it's the communication of emotion.
hmm,
And so, you know, you're verbally communicating all the time. How you speak communicates, and, you know, obviously how you act communicates. And, you know, we all know that the way you say things
mm,
communicates more than what you actually say in lots of cases. So I think for leaders, you know, to operate from a place of calm and peace, um, through breath work, is, you know, maybe one of the, or to at least be aware of that. You know, sometimes, of course, you need to inspire and you need to motivate and you need to, you know, maybe calm and peace isn't the thing that's going to get a platoon of paratroopers, you know, over through a trench, but at least be aware of it, so
mm,
that, you know, you're not being possessed by something you don't want to be possessed by. You know, you can understand when you need to infuse emotion or of a certain type, or when you need to infuse calm and peace, but that you've got control over it.
Yeah, that's it. It's mastery of that. And what are so you talked about the foundations of Systema being body, mind, and emotions. How does the body come into play?
Okay, so your body is a map of your emotions.
Mm,
Um, you know, like if you think of the typical posture of someone who's angry or aggressive or jealous or greed, kind of they're all they bend you and they make you kind of crooked.
mm,
Whereas someone at peace, at ease, will have a more of a straightness. So one of the principles of Systema, it's quite simple. There's only four of them. It's breathing, movement, relaxation, posture. That's why posture is so important, because a straight posture will drop those emotions out of you. Um,
mm,
and and
mm,
so you learn to feel things in your body. And with breathing, um, it's for me, breathing is a feeling rather than a set of techniques. So the techniques allow you to understand how correct breathing should feel in your body. You
mm,
breathe this way and you feel something, you breathe that way and you feel something, you breathe this way and it takes the tension out of your body, or it takes the emotion out of your body. Um, and and especially under stress, techniques are a very hard thing to access, to
mm,
think through, but feelings are what high stress is all about. And if you can like click that you're feeling wrong, or you're feeling different to
mm,
to what your baseline or state is, and you know how to bring yourself back to a feeling, feelings are a shortcut for techniques. So
mm.
like in class, I'll get them to breathe a certain way, and that could be static, it could be moving, it could be in partner work, or more stress, like in a breath hold. But I'll get them to say, right, check in how that feels in your body. What's the tension like? What's your heart rate like? What's your blood pressure like? What emotions are you feeling? What's your breathing rate like? And I'll get them to clock that feeling, and over time they can shortcut the
Mm.
specific technique that gets them to that feeling, or running
Yeah.
through that checklist, and they can go straight to the feeling, and that takes their body and their systems back to the optimal state for whatever situation they're in.
Mm.
So that's the body part, really. It gives you the information to work with.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things I've been really talking about recently is about understanding that pressure of life. Does it get the best of us, or does it get the better of us? And I think,
Mm.
sometimes that self-awareness, understanding how we come across during those times of pressure. And you take people away on camps, you take people away on these trips. Is that a way of getting one to understand self in an environment under stress and pressure a little bit?
Yeah, so the camps, the jungle expeditions. The jungle expedition is more less a Systema camp, really,
Mhm.
although it infuses it, and some people only really get parts of Systema when they go and do something like that. Certainly the
Yeah.
breath work, when they're under a lot of physical stress.
So
Um,
where have you been so far with your expeditions?
so jungle wise, I've done a trip to Borneo, and I've got a trip to Guatemala coming up in February this year. So I've got 23 people coming to Guatemala in Feb. And I've been to Borneo and Belize in the army. And then I've done trips to other forests, like in Europe, Sweden, and I do regular ones in the UK.
Mm,
Um, but so, and in the camps, very much in system, they follow like the path. I mean, they're great to take you out of um, kind of life and put you into, in some ways, like a more real life, if you like,
mm,
because when you remove chairs, cookers, kettles, and and everything is you kind of you're close, you're in the sharper end of life, that you have to think a little bit more about things, and everything's a little bit more vivid and alive, and
Mm.
certainly the feelings in your body. So the stresses, and we take them through that curve of self-awareness first, of notice how you're feeling here, notice how you feel when you do this, and then little by little we'll introduce more stress and keep checking their ability to come back under greater and greater levels of stress
Mm.
to kind of where is an optimal place. Because your most relaxed baseline isn't always the most optimal place. Sometimes you want to be a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit elevated from that, but ideally you've got control of the dial, and you can dial yourself up when you need to, and then dial yourself back down when you need to. And the coming back down bit is the difficult bit for lots of people. Their body, their psyche will take them to a place of stress, or an ability to manage in that stress,
Yeah.
but then getting rid of that afterwards when it's not needed, is the difficult bit, and that's when things start to go toxic,
Yeah.
in your mental state, in your physical state, and your emotional state, and then your overall health. So
Mm.
um,
One of the things I've wrestled with recently is that human beings are the only species that could go to their grave without realizing their potential. And I think that there's something around the animal kingdom that operates out of just instinct versus a human being that's given this sense of consciousness, the ability to choose. And it's interesting what you say there, because whilst peace might not be the optimal state to be in, I guess it's the foundation, because what it does is it gives us the opportunity to then choose. Whereas if we come to the world in that state of stress, we've almost lost our ability to choose, because we're going to act kind of from our instincts.
yeah, and for a long time I used to say and think, and it's very much partly true, that um, stop trying to control the world around you, because you can't. But what you can control is how that's affecting you on the
Mm,
inside, and through breath work or other practices, you can limit sometimes the damage to your internal environment, your physical health, mental, emotional health, that stressful situations, stressful people, a stressful world can have on you. And let's face it, in today's world, stress is the normative state for, or having
mm,
stress all around you is the normative state, and what's happening in your body is how you're representing that inside. Um, so, but I think in some ways, although you can't control it, you can really influence the world around you through how you are. So, like as we talked a little bit earlier, although you can't change or control the situations around you, and neither should you really try, beyond maybe things that you do need to try and control, like your children and your family, and even that is kind of handrails and guardrails
yeah.
rather than control. Um, what you can do is through how you are, and how you and what you exude,
Yeah.
you can influence it. Like, for example, a confrontation. How you respond to that confrontation, what's coming out of you, will have a massive impact on where that goes. And then not only where that goes, but what happens to everyone you meet afterwards for the next day or whatever. Like, how many people get you know frustrated in a car journey, or a car
Mm,
wreck, or a car bump or something, and then carry that stress to everyone else that they meet, because through a lack of maybe lots of things, self-awareness, experience, training, learning, knowledge, they're in some ways unaware that they're possessed by that thing that has happened to them, and they've got no control on dropping it out. It was
yeah.
done to them, and that there's a real power to the
Yeah.
knowledge that you're kind of in control of
Yeah.
what's going on inside. Although there's caveats to that too. No one's a saint and no one's perfect. And
Yeah.
what's the saying, that it's harder to manage yourself than to manage a city, or something like that.
Yeah.
If it was that easy, everyone would be healthy and thin, and or whatever.
I just finished a book last month by Dr. Bruce Lipton, and in it he says that he used to go around telling people that you are 100% responsible for everything in your life. And then people would kind of argue with him and come up with stories around how people had wronged them in their life. And he's like, right, okay, I'm going to really tweak that phrase. I'm going to say, once you become aware that you are responsible for everything in your life, then
Mm.
you are responsible for everything in your life. And I think sometimes it's like you say, it's just
Mm.
having that awareness, um, that we're accountable for everything in our lives.
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
You brought in
I
the
liked what you said earlier as well about, and I hadn't thought of it like that. That human beings are the only creatures that maybe don't live up to their potential. Um,
yeah,
yeah. Mm.
powerful, isn't it? I have some random thoughts every now and again, and that one kept me up for a while. But
Yeah.
it's true. So some people might see that as a burden. I see that as a great responsibility.
Yeah, huge. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're capable of the great joys and the great um, achievements, but we're also capable of the great foreshorts and depressions and all those things that come
Yep.
from that. That feeling of being unfulfilled, which animals
Mm.
don't suffer from, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and I often think about, okay, what does it then mean to be human? We've got the prefrontal cortex of our brain. My dog doesn't. My dog is entirely happy all of the time because it's present. So therefore, we think this is going off on a tangent now, but we think we've evolved to a point where we're a superior species. But this thing at the front of our brain creates all sorts of problems because we have the ability to think about thinking, the
Mm.
future, the past, all in one moment. Whereas the dog still wagging his tail. He's happy. it's, it's
Yeah.
it's funny, isn't it? The flaws in we're starting to realize maybe some of the disbenefits of our evolution.
Yeah. Yeah. And that. And a lot of things like meditation
Yeah.
they try and take you back to the ability to vividly experience every part of every moment, or every vividly experience every moment, and then to drop it as soon as it's gone, which is inherent in that, I guess. um
That's isn't it,
but
and I guess with your Eastern kind of influences as well, it all points to a simpler time, and I think the world currently, as it exists in a Western world, is to our lack, is to our money, is to our commercial opportunities, and we got kids growing up in that world, constantly feeling like they lack something in some way, but if they haven't got the latest clothes, the latest music, latest TikTok trends, how it's difficult, being a young person at today's age. How I know that your family get involved in Systema. How might younger people potentially with a bit of anxiety at school, how might Systema be useful for them?
I think teaching them that they've got some control over how they feel. It's
Mm,
not something that takes them over and they just have to. Well, a lot of them, it's not even. It's just how they feel. That they're not even aware that maybe some things cause them to feel that way,
mhm.
and they don't reflect back and think, what's happened today that's made me feel that way, or what if, like, simple things like if you pick up an injury, or something doesn't go quite right, and you think, okay, just wind that back. What happened that maybe led to that? And even that can give you some sense of ability to manage that, but but it's that, I think, that self firstly, the knowledge that you can change how you feel,
Mm,
and you can positively impact and influence that. And sometimes even with someone else, you know you, like if someone else is having a difficult time, or feeling down, and they say just be with them, and some people think, well, what good is that going to do? What do I say? How do I snap them out of it? How do I bring them out of it?
mm,
When all you need to do is be, feel like you're compassionate, that you care for them, and know how to know how to feel okay in yourself, and then just with being with that person and how
Mm.
you are with them, you'll transmit that across, and that knowledge that they're being cared for. And so in answer to the question about what can children do, I think it's the knowledge that moment to moment you can change how you feel. You can come through things and pull yourself out of things
Mm.
breath by breath,
Yeah.
almost like steps up a ladder or pulling yourself up a rope. It's breath by breath, and you'll pull yourself up and out of it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's pulling ourselves out of our minds, isn't it? Our kids on the Sunday at the moment, they're absolutely buzzing because they get to tackle each other.
Oh,
They're getting out of their minds into their bodies. They're having good fun, and I guess having seen a number of your videos and seeing, like the side rolls, the roly polies, and all sorts. It's just a very connected experience that takes us away from maybe the challenges of everyday life.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it almost I'm aware that I'm making it sound quite simple. Yeah, all you got to do is breathe. Um,
Yeah.
no, um, but there's a difference between breathing and conscious breathing,
Mm.
and it's also linking that to movement, and to those feelings. It's
Mm. I know that you got something coming out soon. What are you working on? What are you looking forward to sharing with the world?
Yeah, so I've got a number of downloadables. I've got a breathwork course, and some mobility and stick mobility, and different things. But a 28-day challenge. Um, but I realized that there's a lot in Systema, and throughout the pandemic, something that I think became apparent to most of us was how fragile your well-being and mental health can be, and
Mm.
how quickly stress and anxiety can come into the system. And I think that was there was a lot of testimony to that from influencers and celebrities, but also like kind of I think everyone felt it in their daily
Mm.
life, the uncertainty. Um, and so what I did was I put together a program, and it was actually on the back of I've got a mentor in the States, and we were chatting, and he said, have you tried taking Systema kind of outside of the Systema community, and to make it a bit more accessible, available to people that have really got no interest in a martial art, or maybe in a would never have heard of Systema.
Mm.
And I said, yeah, I've tried lots of times, but it's not easy. And he said, what you need really is something that will catch people's imagination, something that people will look at and think, oh, that's relevant to me.
Mhm.
Or just something catchy. And he talked about, because he's in the health and fitness industry, he talked about when kettlebells came to
Mhm.
America. And there's a guy called Pavel who was a Russian, and he had this image of the strength secrets of the Russian strongmen, and going back to the gladiator days and things, and it really fired the imagination and caught them. And I'm always a little bit self-conscious of that, that you don't want to hype something up and make it sound hugely grand when it's actually quite a simple thing. um, and I was like, well, okay. And I thought about the idea of where Systema came from. And as I mentioned, it came from the knights who guarded the monks in the churches, and it's kind of filtered all the way through. And whereas in lots of Eastern martial arts, they kind of almost froze in time, and you go in and you still wear the uniform of the 1,000 years ago in Japan, or the nomenclature is all the same. But Systema was a bit different. It kind of allowed itself to move with the times and change with the needs, and how people moved. And there was a period after the Second World War, or just after the Second World War, when they set up in Russia a thing called the Smersh, who were the spy catchers, is the rough translation of it. And they're the people that Stalin sent out across Europe to track down the Nazis,
Mm.
and bring them back. And they operated under a lot of stress.
Mm.
So, Stalin, maybe he's not the most HR savvy boss the world has ever known. So, he would, when he sent these guys out, they would go on the understanding they had to do some pretty dangerous stuff. They had to walk in, everyday life. It wasn't a battlefield anymore. It was, like everyday life, and they had to track someone down, follow them, find their patterns, so that they could, capture them and bring them back to Russia. And, not an easy thing to do. It's much easier to shoot someone than to do that, but that was no good to them. So they went out to do these jobs on the understanding, and also these were pretty skilled guys they were trying to track down too. There was, the danger of trying to catch a tiger kind of thing. And they went out in the knowledge that if they came back having failed in the mission, either failed to find them, failed to catch them, or they shot them and had to kill them in the process of bringing them back, they'd be killed. No questions, they're killed. If they got killed in the process of doing it, then their whole family would be killed. So there's a lot of pressure and stress these guys had to operate under. And the thing about stress is that it's visible, especially when you know what to look for. And you can't hide stress or like just put the lid on it and screw it down nice and tight and think it won't, because it'll leak out of your movements, your actions, your breathing, your voice, your conversation, your posture, so what they had to learn to do is remove stress, to know how to let stress out of the body and to calibrate so that whatever situation they're in, if they're in on a walking onto a bus or going into a park, or they had to be able to calibrate to the frequency of the environment, what frequency are people on, and just blend in with it so they were unnoticed, even by people trained to look for it. And so that's a skill that Systema teaches you. Firstly, how to let go of stress, how to feel it coming, poof, and you almost just pull the plug and it drops out. And then how to calibrate yourself to the situation so that you blend in and become unnoticed, And they're useful skills, not just for spies, but for every day, If you've got the ability to let go of stress, then that's a powerful capability. And it's like I say, it's an everyday thing, and it's maybe not walking up Everest in bare feet or sitting in an icy river for 8 minutes, but it doesn't need to be either, and they're good things, they're useful things. But if you can let go of stress in a moment on command, that's like a superpower for most people. So really over 8 days, it's a series of practices that you can kind of short, you can pick up quite quick, and you can implement it in every day when you're walking along the street, you're driving in your car, you're sat at your desk, you're, with your children, whatever. They're things that you can start to notice and apply a couple of skills and get better and better through practice in everyday moments to bring a better quality to your life.
Yeah, I love that. Is that a course cohort time, or is it a online come and get it as and when?
It'll be an online thing, so people can just sign up and get it, and then it'll be a number of emails over 8 emails over 8 days.
Yep.
And then they're there for them to come back to practice, whatever, with a video link in them and some notes afterwards. So.
Amazing. So if you listen to this before Christmas, what an ideal Christmas present for any human being that wants to release stress, right? What a gift. What a gift. Amazing. Mate, thank you for taking time out of your day for coming back to the show. Really good to hear from you again. I'll put all your good links in the show notes. Just be honored if you'd leave us with a final thought from yourself.
What I did then, exhale. If you, in moments, and these happen all the time in your life, when you're caught in a thought or caught in a problem or caught in an interaction, you'll hold your breath, and if you exhale, you'll release that pressure. I mean, anyone listening to it now, exhale in a way, that you feel like a sigh, almost like you feel relaxation fall down through your body. Try not to collapse your body at the same time. Try and, relax without collapse, but exhale. And then you'll naturally inhale after an exhale. It's the strongest urge that a human being's got. And when you inhale, bring it in through the nose, and that'll give you clarity and relaxation. So.
Love that. Thank you so much for your time, mate.
Awesome. Great to see you, Ryan.